The night is quiet. The air feels still, almost as if it has paused to listen. Somewhere far away, a river moves gently through the darkness, steady and patient as it has always been. Its waters do not rush. They do not hurry. They simply flow, carrying with them the soft rhythm of time itself. And as you rest, drifting slowly between waking and sleep, we begin to move backward, very slowly, into a world long before our own. A world of warm earth beneath bare feet. A world of sun-baked walls and soft woven mats. A world where life rises and falls with the river. This is ancient Egypt. But not the Egypt of towering monuments or golden treasures. Not the Egypt of kings and grand ceremonies. Tonight, we step quietly into something much smaller and much softer. We enter the homes of ordinary people. We move through their doorways. We sit beside them as they wake, as they work, as they rest. We listen to the gentle sounds of daily life, the kind that rarely make it into history, yet form the true rhythm of human existence. Let your thoughts settle. Let your breathing slow. There is no need to hurry. We have plenty of time. The first light of morning in ancient Egypt does not arrive suddenly. It comes gradually, like a soft whisper across the land. The sky begins as a deep, quiet blue. Then slowly it fades into pale shades of gray, and then into a gentle wash of gold near the horizon. The air is cool at this early hour, cooler than it will be for the rest of the day. For a short while, the heat of the sun has not yet taken hold, and everything feels calm and still. In a small village near the Nile, the shapes of houses begin to appear as the light grows stronger. They are simple homes, low and rectangular, built from mud bricks shaped by hand, dried slowly under the sun. The walls are thick, holding in a quiet kind of comfort. They protect against the heat of midday and keep a bit of warmth during the cooler nights. Each brick carries the mark of human touch, fingerprints pressed into wet clay, small imperfections that tell quiet stories of the people who made them. The color of these homes blends into the earth itself, soft browns and faded golds, as if the village has gently risen out of the ground rather than being built upon it. The roofs are flat, made from wooden beams covered with layers of reeds and packed mud. These rooftops are not only coverings, they are also spaces for living, places where people sit in the evening, places where grain is dried under the sun, places where the breeze feels just a little bit cooler. Inside one of these homes, the day begins, very slowly. There is no sudden noise, no sharp alarm, only the quiet shift of someone waking. A woman opens her eyes. For a moment, she remains still, listening. The world outside is beginning to stir, faint sounds of movement, the distant call of birds, the soft rustle of wind against dry plants. She sits up gently from a woven mat laid across the floor. The mat is simple, made from reeds gathered along the riverbank. It has been used many times. It carries the faint shape of sleep. Around her, the room is dim, lit only by the early light slipping in through a small opening near the top of the wall. There are not many objects inside. Life here is not filled with possessions. Instead, each item has a purpose. Each object is used, cared for, and understood. In one corner there are clay jars, smooth and rounded. They hold water, grain, maybe a little oil. Their surfaces are cool to the touch in the morning. Nearby, A low wooden stool rests against the wall. Simple, sturdy, worn slightly from years of use. There is a grinding stone as well, heavy and flat. Beside it, a smaller stone used for crushing grain into flour. These tools are quiet now, but later they will become part of the rhythm of the day. The woman stands. Her feet meet the packed earth floor, firm and familiar. She moves slowly, not rushing. There is no need. Outside, the light continues to grow, and with it, the village begins to wake. A man steps out into the open air. He pauses just outside his home. The ground beneath him is cool, still holding the memory of night. He looks toward the east, where the sun is now just beginning to rise over the distant horizon. The Nile lies not far away. Though it cannot always be seen from every home, it can be felt. Its presence is constant. It brings life. It shapes everything. The smell of water, faint but steady, drifts through the air. There is a softness to it, a quiet reminder that the river is always there, moving slowly, endlessly. The man takes a deep breath, then another. The day will be long, but it has not begun in full just yet. For now, there is still peace. Nearby, another door opens, then another. People begin to step outside, one by one, greeting the morning in silence or with soft voices. No one speaks loudly. There is a shared understanding of this gentle hour. Children remain inside for a little while longer, still wrapped in sleep. But soon they too will wake. Soon the village will be filled with movement, with footsteps, with the soft rhythm of daily work. Back inside the home, the woman begins her morning tasks. She kneels beside the grinding stone. Carefully, she pours a small amount of grain onto its surface. The grains are dry and pale, collected and stored from earlier harvests. She picks up the smaller stone and begins to move it back and forth, slowly at first, then with a steady rhythm. The sound is soft, a gentle scraping, over and over again. It is not loud or harsh. Instead, it blends into the quiet background of the morning, joining similar sounds from nearby homes. This is one of the first sounds of the day. Grain being turned into flour, food being prepared in the simplest and most essential way. The motion is repetitive, calm, almost meditative. Her hands know exactly what to do. There is no need to think about it. She has done this many times before. The flour begins to form, fine and soft, gathering slowly at the base of the stone. Time passes gently, unnoticed, unrushed. And as the sun rises a little higher, its warmth begins to spread across the land. The coolness of early morning fades. The day begins to take shape, and life, in all its quiet detail, continues forward.
The morning continues to open slowly, like a quiet flower turning toward the sun. Light now reaches deeper into the small homes, touching the walls, the floor, and the simple objects placed with care. The coolness of dawn begins to fade, replaced by a gentle warmth that settles over everything. Inside the home, the soft grinding of grain continues for a while longer. The woman pauses, just for a moment, letting her hands rest. She looks at the small pile of flour she has made. It is enough for now, enough to begin the first meal of the day. She stands and moves toward one of the clay jars. The jar is slightly rough on the outside, shaped by hand and hardened by fire. When she lifts the lid, a faint earthy smell rises up, the quiet scent of stored grain and time. She takes what she needs and then closes it again,
carefully. Nothing is wasted here. Every small amount matters. Every grain has meaning. Outside, the village is now fully awake. Soft voices drift through the air. Footsteps move along the packed earth paths between homes. Some people carry tools, others carry baskets. A few lead animals slowly, guiding them with quiet gestures rather than force. There is no rush, but there is purpose. Each person knows what the day will bring. Each movement fits into a rhythm that has been followed for generations. Near the edge of the village, the land begins to open toward the Nile. The river glows under the morning sun, its surface smooth and steady. It does not sparkle sharply. Instead, it reflects light in a soft, almost muted way. Along its banks, the soil is dark and rich, very different from the dry, pale ground farther away. This is where much of the work will happen today. Fields stretch outward, shaped by careful hands. Small channels carry water from the river into the land, guiding it slowly, allowing it to soak into the soil. These channels are not perfect. They curve gently. They follow the natural shape of the ground. And yet, they are enough. They bring life to the fields. A man walks along one of these narrow paths between the crops. His feet press lightly into the earth. He carries a simple tool made of wood. Its surface is worn smooth from use. He pauses now and then, looking closely at the plants, checking the soil, feeling its moisture with his fingers. The work here is not rushed. It cannot be. The land moves at its own pace, and those who care for it must learn to move the same way. Back in the village, children begin to step outside. Their movements are slower than the adults, still soft with sleep. They blink in the growing light, adjusting to the brightness of the day. Some stay close to their homes. Others wander a little farther, but never too far. There is a quiet sense of safety here, a feeling of being surrounded by the familiar. One child sits near a doorway, watching as an older family member prepares food. The process is simple, but it holds attention. The mixing of flour with water, the shaping of dough, the gentle pressing and turning. Small hands sometimes try to help, though not always perfectly. But perfection is not required, only participation, only learning through watching and doing. The smell of baking begins to spread. It is warm and soft, not strong, but steady. It moves through the air, passing from one home to another, carried lightly by the morning breeze. A small oven made from clay holds the heat. Inside, the dough begins to change, slowly becoming bread. This is a familiar process, one that happens every day, one that connects each morning to the one before it and the one before that. Time moves gently forward. The sun climbs higher. Shadows grow shorter. The quiet of early morning shifts into the steady activity of the day. But still, nothing feels hurried. Nothing feels loud. Even in work, there is a kind of calm, a steady rhythm that continues without strain. Voices remain soft, movements remain measured. The world here does not rush forward. It unfolds slowly, step by step, moment by moment. Inside the home, the first pieces of bread are ready. They are simple in shape, flat and slightly uneven, but they are enough. The woman sets them aside carefully, letting them cool just a little. There may be other small things to eat as well, perhaps some vegetables, perhaps dates, whatever is available, whatever has been gathered or saved. Meals here are not large. They are not filled with many choices, but they are steady, reliable, and shared. A man returns briefly from outside. He steps into the shade of the home. The difference in temperature is noticeable, cooler inside. protected from the direct heat of the sun. He sits for a moment on the low stool, resting, but only briefly. The day's work is waiting. But even in work, there are small pauses, small spaces of stillness. He takes a piece of bread, eats slowly, without distraction, without hurry. And so the morning continues, not in large events, not in sudden changes, but in small, steady actions, repeated, understood, familiar, the kind of moments that do not stand out, but quietly build a life. The sun rises a little higher, the warmth deepens, and the village, settled along the edge of the Nile, continues its gentle rhythm, just as it has for many days before, and many days yet to come.
The sun continues its slow climb across the sky. Its light now rests fully over the village, touching every wall, every path, every quiet corner. The cool softness of early morning has gently disappeared, replaced by a steady warmth that settles into the earth and into the bodies of those who move through it. The rhythm of the day becomes a little more defined now. Not faster, just clearer. Each person moves with quiet intention. Each action flows into the next. Along the narrow paths between the homes, footprints begin to layer over one another, soft impressions in the dust, some small, some larger. They tell a quiet story of movement, of lives passing gently through the same spaces again and again. A woman walks carefully, balancing a clay jar against her side. The jar is not empty. It holds water, drawn from the Nile earlier in the morning. The weight is familiar. Her body adjusts without effort. She does not rush. The path is uneven in places, but she knows it well. Each step is placed with quiet awareness. When she reaches her home, she lowers the jar slowly, setting it down with care. Water is precious. It is not wasted. She covers the opening, keeping the contents cool and clean. Nearby, another jar sits in the shade, its surface slightly damp from earlier use. The air around it feels a little cooler, a small comfort against the growing heat. Inside many homes, the work of the morning continues in soft, repeating patterns. Hands move through familiar tasks, preparing food, organizing tools, sweeping the floor with simple bundles of reeds. The motion of sweeping is slow and steady. Dust gathers, then disappears. The space becomes clear again, clean in the quiet way that matters here. There is no perfection, only care. In one home, a small child sits close to the ground, watching everything. Eyes follow each movement, each action. There is curiosity, but it is quiet. The child does not interrupt. Instead, learning happens through stillness, through observation, through time. A small hand reaches toward a nearby object, a wooden bowl smoothed from years of use. Fingers trace its edge, feeling its shape, understanding it not through words, but through touch. Outside, the sounds of work in the fields continue to drift back toward the village. Soft voices, the gentle movement of tools through soil, the occasional call between workers, low and unhurried. The land near the Nile remains calm even as it is tended. Water moves slowly through the irrigation channels. It does not rush. It spreads quietly, soaking into the dark earth. The plants respond in silence, roots drawing in what they need, leaves turning toward the sun. Everything moves at its own pace. Nothing is forced. A man kneels near one of the channels, adjusting the flow of water. He uses his hands, shaping the small edges of earth that guide the current. It is simple work, Careful work. The difference between too much water and too little is small but important. He watches closely, feels the soil, waits for the right balance, and when it is right, he stops. There is no need to change it further. Back in the village, the heat becomes more noticeable. It is not sudden. It builds slowly, layer by layer. The sun now stands higher, and its warmth begins to press more firmly against the land. Shadows shrink. Spaces of shade become more valuable. People move differently now, still steady, but more aware of the heat, more aware of where the light falls. Some choose to remain inside for a while. The thick mud brick walls offer protection. Inside, the air is cooler. The light is softer. Time feels slower. A woman sits near the wall, working with her hands. She weaves fibers together, forming something useful, perhaps a mat, perhaps a basket. The fibers are dry but flexible. They bend without breaking. Her fingers move with practiced ease, over and under, over and under. The pattern grows slowly. There is no rush to finish, only the quiet satisfaction of making something that will be used. Nearby, another person shapes clay. The material is soft and cool at first. It responds to pressure, to touch. A simple vessel begins to take form, round at the base, narrowing slightly at the top. The shape is familiar. It has been made many times before, but each one is slightly different. Each one carries its own small variations, its own quiet identity. When the shaping is done, it will be left to dry, then later hardened by fire, transformed slowly, patiently, into something strong. Children move in and out of the shaded spaces. Their energy is gentle, not loud or wild. They play in simple ways, with small objects, with bits of earth, with imagination that does not need many things. Sometimes they sit quietly. Sometimes they follow the movements of the adults, learning without being told they are learning. The village feels alive, but never overwhelming. There is movement, but also stillness. There is sound, but also quiet. Everything exists together in balance. Nothing pushes too hard against the calm. As the day continues, the sun reaches its highest point. The light becomes more direct, more intense. This is a time when movement slows even more. Work in the fields may pause briefly. People return to their homes or find shade where they can. Rest is not seen as stopping. It is simply another part of the rhythm, a necessary pause, a moment to let the body recover, to let the heat pass. Inside a home, a man lies back for a short while, not fully asleep, not fully awake, just resting. The quiet surrounds him. The thick walls soften the outside sounds. His breathing slows. Even time itself seems to move more gently here. Nearby, the woman who worked earlier now sits still. Her hands rest in her lap. For a few moments there is nothing to do, and that is enough. Outside, the air shimmers slightly in the heat. The land feels warm underfoot. The Nile continues to flow, unchanged, always steady, always present. And slowly, very slowly, the highest heat of the day begins to ease. Not all at once, just a small shift, almost unnoticeable at first. But it is there, the promise of the afternoon, the quiet movement of time forward. And with that gentle change, life begins to stir again. Not suddenly, not all at once, but in small ways. A step here, a movement there, the rhythm returning, just as soft, just as steady as before.
The afternoon arrives quietly. It does not announce itself. It simply settles in, like a soft layer of warmth that gently replaces the heavier heat of midday. The sun begins its slow descent, though it still hangs high enough to cast a bright, steady light across the land. The air feels a little easier to move through now. Breathing becomes softer, steps become lighter, and the village, which had rested in the stillness of the hottest hours, begins to wake again, slowly, naturally. A door opens, then another. People step back into the light, adjusting to the brightness after the dim coolness of their homes. There is no rush to return to work, only a quiet understanding that the day is not yet finished. There is still time. There is always time for what needs to be done. Near the edge of the village, a group of men and women begin to make their way back toward the fields. Their movements are calm, measured. They carry simple tools, some resting across their shoulders, others held loosely in their hands. The ground beneath them is dry again near the village, but as they walk closer to the Nile, it slowly changes, becoming darker, softer, more alive with moisture. The transition is gentle, almost like stepping into a different world without ever leaving the same place. In the fields, the work resumes, not with urgency, but with quiet purpose. Hands return to the soil. Feet find their places along the narrow paths. Voices rise softly, exchanging small words, simple communication that flows as easily as the river nearby. A man bends to examine a plant. He brushes his fingers lightly over its leaves, feels its strength, its texture. He nods slightly, satisfied. There is no need for more. The plant is growing as it should. Water continues to move through the channels. It glides slowly, guided by the shapes formed earlier in the day. Now and then, someone adjusts the flow. A small push of earth, a slight opening or closing. These changes are subtle, but they matter. The balance is always being watched, always being cared for. Back in the village, other kinds of work take place. Quieter work. Work that stays within the shelter of walls and shade. A woman kneels near a low surface, preparing fibers for weaving. She separates them carefully, lays them out in straight lines. Her fingers move slowly, with patience. There is no force in her movements, only control, only care. As she begins to weave again, the pattern returns, familiar, steady, each strand crossing over another, building something useful, something that will become part of daily life. In another home, a soft tapping sound can be heard. Someone shapes a piece of wood. The tool is simple, its edge worn but still effective. With each careful motion, the wood changes slightly. Edges smooth out. Surfaces become even. The process is slow. There is no need to hurry. The work itself creates its own rhythm, a quiet, repeating sound that fills the space without disturbing it. Children move through the village now in small groups. The heat no longer holds them still. They walk along familiar paths, sometimes stopping to look at something small, a mark in the ground, a piece of broken pottery, a line of ants moving steadily toward their unseen destination. Their world is made of these details, simple things, quiet discoveries. They speak softly to one another, their voices light and calm. There is no need for loudness. Everything around them already feels full. A small breeze begins to move through the village. At first, it is almost unnoticeable, just a slight shift in the air.
but gradually it becomes clearer. It passes over the rooftops, through narrow openings, along the shaded paths. It carries with it a faint coolness, a small relief from the warmth that still lingers. People feel it as it moves past them. Some pause for just a moment, letting it pass over their skin. Then they continue with what they were doing. On one of the flat rooftops, grain is spread out in a thin layer. It rests under the afternoon sun, drying slowly. A person moves it gently with their hands, turning it so that each part is touched by the warmth. The grains shift with a soft, whispering sound, dry against dry. It is a quiet task, repetitive, but important. Everything here depends on careful attention to small things. Nearby, another rooftop holds a different kind of stillness. A mat is laid out. Someone sits there, looking out over the village. From this height, the shapes of the homes become clearer, the way they cluster together, the way the paths wind between them. Beyond that, the green of the fields stretches toward the river, and beyond that, the dry, endless land. It is a simple view, but it holds everything: home, work, water, life. As the sun continues its slow movement downward, the light begins to change. It softens, loses a little of its sharpness. Shadows grow longer again, stretching gently across the ground. The colors of the earth deepen, become warmer, richer. The village begins to feel different, not quieter, but softer, more settled. In the fields, work begins to slow. Tools are lifted less often. Movements become less frequent. People take longer pauses between actions. The day's tasks are nearly complete. There is no need to push beyond what has already been done. The land will wait. It always does. A man stands upright, placing his tool over his shoulder. He looks across the field, not searching for anything, just seeing, taking in what is there: the plants, the soil, the slow movement of water. It is enough. Then, without hurry, he begins to walk back toward the village. Others do the same, one by one, in no particular order. The return is quiet, unspoken, a shared understanding that the work of the day is coming to a close. Back in the village, preparations begin for the evening. Fires are carefully started, small at first, then growing just enough to provide heat for cooking. The smell of smoke rises slowly into the air. It is not heavy. It drifts gently, blending with the scents of earth and dry plants. Food is prepared again, simple, steady, just as it was in the morning. Hands move through familiar motions, nothing new, nothing surprising, only the comfort of repetition. The breeze continues to pass through, now a little cooler than before. It moves across the skin, through the spaces between homes, over the rooftops. It carries with it the quiet sounds of the village: soft voices, light footsteps, the gentle crackle of small fires, all blending together into a single calm presence. And as the sun lowers further toward the horizon, the light becomes golden, soft and warm. It touches everything with a quiet glow: the walls of the homes, the paths beneath bare feet, the surfaces of clay jars and wooden tools. Everything seems to slow even more in this light, as if the day itself is preparing to rest. The village continues its gentle rhythm, unbroken, unhurried, flowing forward in the same calm way it always has. And as the evening begins to approach, the world softens just a little more.
The evening begins not with a sudden change, but with a quiet softening of everything. The light, once bright and direct, now drifts into warmer tones. Gold settles over the village, touching the walls of the homes, the paths between them, and the still surfaces of clay jars resting in the shade. The air feels different now, lighter, easier. The heat of the day slowly loosens its hold, and in its place comes a gentle coolness that moves in softly, almost unnoticed at first. People return fully from the fields. Their steps are steady, but slower than before. The work of the day rests behind them now. There is no need to carry its weight any longer. Tools are set aside, placed carefully near doorways or leaned against walls. Each one will be used again, but not now. Now is a time of easing, a time of quiet transition. In the center of the village, small fires continue to burn. They are not large, they do not need to be, just enough to warm the evening meal. The flames move gently, rising and falling with the faint breeze. Their light flickers against nearby surfaces, adding a soft glow to the fading sunlight. The smell of cooking begins to deepen, warm, simple, familiar. Grain baking again, perhaps lentils or vegetables simmering slowly. The scent spreads quietly, carried through the air, reaching each corner of the village. Inside one home, a woman sits close to the fire. Her movements are calm and practiced. She turns the bread carefully, watching its surface change, listening to the soft sounds of cooking. Nearby, a child sits close, drawn by the warmth, watching just as before, learning without words. The firelight reflects softly in the child's eyes, a quiet moment shared without needing to be spoken. Outside, voices begin to gather, not loud, not crowded, just small groups forming naturally. People sitting together near their homes, on low stools, on mats placed on the ground. Some sit on the flat rooftops where the air feels cooler and the view stretches outward. Conversations are simple, gentle, words exchanged slowly, pauses left between them. Silence is not uncomfortable here. It is part of the conversation, part of the connection. A man sits with others, his hands resting loosely in his lap. He listens more than he speaks, nods occasionally, adds a few quiet words. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. The day has already been full. There is no need to fill the evening with more. Children move more slowly now. Their energy has softened. Some sit close to their families. Others lie down on mats, watching the sky begin to change. The blue above fades gradually, deepening as the sun lowers further. Soon the first hints of evening will appear, but for now there is still light, still warmth, still the last quiet moments of the day. Near the river, the Nile reflects the colors of the sky, gold shifting into soft orange, then into deeper shades. The water remains steady, unchanged, always moving, yet always calm. A few figures stand near its edge, some collecting water for the night, others simply standing, watching. There is something peaceful about this time, the way the light rests on the surface, the way the air feels softer, the way everything slows without effort. Back in the village, the evening meal is ready. Food is shared simply, placed between those who sit together. There are no large portions, no excess, only what is needed, only what has been prepared with care. Hands reach slowly, pieces are taken, eaten without hurry, each bite steady, quiet. There is no distraction, no rush to finish, only the simple act of eating together. The fires burn lower now, their flames smaller, their light softer. They will not last much longer. They do not need to. The day is ending. The night is coming, and with it, a different kind of stillness. The sky continues to darken. The golden light fades gently, replaced by deeper tones, soft blues, hints of purple. The first stars begin to appear, faint at first, then clearer, one by one. They too do not rush, they simply arrive. A cool breeze moves through the village again, softer than before, carrying the quiet sounds of evening. Low voices, the shifting of bodies settling into rest, the faint crackle of dying fires. It passes over rooftops, through doorways, across the open spaces, touching everything lightly. Inside the homes, people begin to prepare for sleep. Mats are unrolled, simple bedding arranged. There is no complexity, only what is needed for rest. A place to lie down, a place to close the eyes, a place to let the day drift away. A woman sits for a moment before lying down. Her hands rest quietly. Her breathing slows. The work of the day is finished. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to prepare. Only rest, only stillness. Outside, the village grows quieter. One voice fades, then another. Movement becomes less frequent. Steps slow, then stop. The world does not fall silent at once. It settles into silence gradually, naturally. The Nile continues its steady flow, unchanged by day or night. Its quiet movement becomes one of the only sounds left, a constant presence, soft and endless. The stars above grow clearer now, filling the sky slowly, their light gentle, distant. They look down over the village, just as they have for countless nights before. Nothing feels rushed, nothing feels loud, only calm, only quiet, only the slow, steady passage of time. And as the last warmth of the day fades completely, and the cool stillness of night settles in, the village rests. Not deeply at first, but gently, like a breath being released. Everything becomes softer, quieter, slower, and the night continues.
The night settles fully over the village. It does not arrive all at once, but now it is complete. The last traces of daylight have faded, leaving behind a soft darkness that rests gently on the land. The sky stretches wide above, filled with quiet stars that shine without effort, without sound. The air has cooled, not cold, just calm, a gentle relief after the warmth of the day. Most of the village is still now. The movement of earlier hours has faded into rest. Bodies lie on woven mats, breathing slow and steady. The shapes of people are soft in the darkness, barely visible within the shelter of mud brick walls. There is no need for light. The night provides its own kind of comfort. From outside, the village appears almost unchanged. The same low shapes, the same quiet paths, but now everything feels softer. Edges blur into shadow. Details disappear into stillness. The world becomes simple again. Just earth, air, and quiet life at rest. A faint sound drifts through the night, the soft movement of the Nile. It continues as it always does, flowing gently, endlessly, without pause. Its presence is constant. Even in darkness it can be felt, a steady reminder that life continues even while people sleep. Occasionally, a small movement breaks the stillness. Someone shifts slightly on a mat. A quiet breath changes rhythm. A hand moves, then becomes still again. These are not disturbances. They are part of rest, part of the slow, natural rhythm of the night. Outside, the breeze returns once more, even softer now.
It moves through narrow spaces between homes, brushes lightly against walls, slips through small openings near the tops of rooms, carrying with it the coolness of the night air. It touches everything gently, then passes on. On a rooftop, someone remains awake for a little while longer, lying on a mat, looking upward. The sky feels endless. The stars seem closer here, away from the enclosed space of the home, each one steady, unmoving. There is no need to count them, no need to understand them, just to see them, to feel their quiet presence. The sounds of the night are few, a distant call of an animal, the faint rustle of dry plants shifting in the breeze, the soft, continuous movement of water. All of it blends together into a single calm background. Nothing sharp, nothing sudden, only gentle layers of sound that come and go without effort. Inside one home, a small child stirs, eyes open briefly. The darkness feels different from the light of day, but not frightening, just unfamiliar for a moment. The child listens, hears the soft breathing nearby, feels the closeness of others resting. Slowly the eyes close again. Sleep returns easily. Time moves differently in the night. There are no clear markers, no shifting shadows to measure its passing, only the steady rhythm of breath, the quiet movement of air, the constant flow of the river. Hours pass in this way, slowly, unnoticed. The village remains at rest, each person held in the same calm stillness, protected by the walls they built, surrounded by the land they know, connected to the same quiet world. At some point, the night deepens even further. The air cools just a little more. The stars shine clearly above, undisturbed. The world feels distant and close at the same time, large in its silence, small in its simplicity. And then, very slowly, without any clear moment of change, the night begins to soften, not with light yet, but with a feeling, a subtle shift in the air, a quiet sense that something is moving forward. Far away, beyond what can be seen, the first hint of morning begins its slow return. The cycle continues, as it always has, as it always will. Inside the village, people remain asleep, their breathing steady, their bodies at rest. But the world around them is already preparing for another day, another gentle beginning. The Nile flows on. The air moves softly. The earth waits. And in this quiet space between night and morning, everything remains still, just a little longer. Before the light returns, there is a moment that feels almost suspended, a quiet space where the night has not fully gone and the morning has not fully arrived. The air is still, cool but gentle. The stars remain in the sky, though some begin to fade, becoming softer, less certain, as the horizon slowly prepares to change. In the village, most people are still asleep. Their breathing remains slow and even. The woven mats beneath them hold the warmth of their bodies, while the air above stays cool and calm. The walls of the homes, thick and steady, continue to shelter them from the outside world. Nothing moves quickly here. Even waking comes slowly. A faint sound begins to rise in the distance. It is not loud, not short, just a soft call of a bird, greeting the earliest edge of morning. Then another sound follows, and another. Small, scattered voices from the natural world, gently marking the shift of time. The sky begins to change. At first, it is almost impossible to notice. A slight lifting of darkness near the horizon, a pale softness that spreads slowly, like breath across a quiet surface. The stars begin to disappear, not all at once, but one by one, fading into the growing light. Inside one home, a man stirs. His eyes open slowly. For a moment, he remains still, listening, feeling the quiet, sensing the change in the air. There is no urgency to rise, only a gentle awareness that the day will begin again. Nearby, another person shifts. A hand moves across the mat. A quiet breath deepens. The transition from sleep to waking is soft, unforced. There is no sudden break, only a gradual return. Outside, the shapes of the village begin to reappear. The outlines of homes become clearer. The paths between them emerge from shadow. The earth takes on a faint color once more, soft gray turning slowly toward warm tones. The Nile, though still quiet, reflects the earliest light. Its surface shifts from darkness to a gentle, muted glow. The water continues its steady movement, unchanged by the passing of night or the coming of day. It is always there, always the same. A woman sits up slowly inside her home. She pauses, just as she did the day before, listening, feeling the stillness before the day begins. Her movements are familiar. Her body remembers what comes next. There is comfort in this repetition, in the quiet certainty of routine. She rises and steps onto the cool earth floor. The feeling is gentle beneath her feet, not harsh, not cold, just a soft connection to the ground. Outside, another door opens, then another. The village begins to wake once more, not all at once, but piece by piece, like the slow brightening of the sky. A man steps outside and looks toward the horizon. The sun has not yet risen, but its presence can already be felt. A subtle warmth, a quiet promise of light. He takes a slow breath. The air feels clean, fresh, untouched by the heat that will come later. In the distance, the fields wait, still and quiet. The plants stand gently in the early light. The soil holds the memory of yesterday's water. Everything is ready. Nothing needs to be rushed. Inside the homes, the first small movements of the day begin again. Hands reach for familiar tools. Clay jars are opened. Water is poured carefully. The same actions return, not as repetition that tires, but as rhythm that comforts. The grinding stones are used once more. Grain is poured. The soft scraping sound begins again. Slow, steady, calm. It echoes lightly through the village, blending with other quiet sounds of waking life. A child opens their eyes. The light is different now, softer than full day, but brighter than night. They remain still for a moment, watching the space around them slowly come to view. Then, gently, they sit up. The day has begun again. Outside, the sky shifts further. Pale gold spreads along the horizon. The first edge of the sun prepares to rise. The world holds a quiet stillness, as if waiting, not in anticipation, but in calm acceptance. Then, slowly, very slowly, the sun appears, a small curve of light, warm, soft, steady. It lifts itself above the horizon, without sound, without hurry. Its light touches the village once more. The walls of the homes, the paths, the rooftops, everything receives it in the same quiet way. The coolness of early morning begins to shift, not yet gone, but slowly giving way. The day is beginning again, just as it did before, just as it will again. People move gently into their routines. No one speaks loudly, no one rushes. There is no need. The rhythm is already known, already understood. The Nile flows beside them. The fields wait ahead. The homes stand behind. Everything in its place, everything as it should be. And so the village wakes once more, not with noise, not with urgency, but with the same calm, steady rhythm that carries each day forward, one quiet moment at a time.
The new day settles gently over the village. The sun has now risen fully, though its warmth is still soft, still kind. Light spreads slowly across the land, touching each surface with a calm, even glow. Nothing feels sudden. Nothing feels sharp. Only the quiet return of movement, the same rhythm unfolding once again. The early hours of the morning carry a peaceful energy. It is a time when work begins, but gently, without strain, without pressure. The air still holds a trace of coolness, and people move through it with ease. Near one of the homes, a woman kneels beside a clay jar. She lifts water carefully into a smaller container. The motion is slow and controlled. Water is never handled carelessly. Each drop matters. Each movement is thoughtful. She carries it a short distance, setting it near the place where food will be prepared. The ground beneath her feet is smooth and firm, worn down by many days, many steps. Inside the home, the familiar morning work begins again. Grain is placed onto the grinding stone. The small stone moves back and forth. The soft, steady sound returns. It is one of the first true rhythms of the day. Quiet, repeating, almost like breathing. Over time, the grain becomes flour, fine and pale, gathering slowly. There is no need to rush the process. It cannot be hurried. It simply unfolds. Outside, the village continues to wake. More people step into the light. Some stretch gently, easing into the day. Others begin moving toward their tasks without pause. Each person follows a path that feels natural. No instructions are needed. The routine lives within them. A man walks toward the edge of the village, carrying a simple wooden tool. The path is familiar beneath his feet. He does not look down. He knows where it leads. The land opens gradually as he moves closer to the fields. The air feels slightly different there, more open, more connected to the river. The Nile flows steadily, as always. Its presence is calm, reliable. The water moves without sound, except for the softest shifting near the edges. It reflects the morning light in gentle tones. Nothing harsh, nothing bright, only a quiet shimmer. In the fields, the day's work begins once more. People spread out naturally, each finding their place. Some tend to the soil, others guide water through the narrow channels. Each task is small on its own, but together they shape the land. A man bends down, pressing his fingers into the earth. He feels its moisture, its texture. The soil responds to touch. It tells him what it needs without words. He adjusts his work accordingly, a small change, a slight movement of earth, and then he pauses, observes, waits. Nearby, water moves gently along its path. It fills the channels, then settles into the soil. There is no force, only flow. The plants receive it quietly, their leaves stilled, their roots deep. Everything happens beneath the surface, unseen but understood. Back in the village, the morning meal begins to take shape. Dough is formed, flattened,
placed onto a warm surface. The smell of baking returns, soft and comforting. It spreads slowly through the air, familiar, expected, steady. Children begin to gather near the homes. Some sit close to their families. Others wander short distances, always within sight. Their movements are gentle, curious, but calm. They notice small things, the shape of a stone, the pattern in the dirt, the way light falls against a wall. Their world is built from these quiet details. A child crouches near the ground, tracing lines in the dust with a finger. The marks are simple, temporary. Soon they will fade, but for now they are enough. A small act of creation, a quiet moment of focus. On a rooftop, grain is laid out once again, spread thin beneath the rising sun. A person moves it slowly, turning it with care. The grains shift with a soft sound, dry against dry. The process is patient. There is no hurry. Time moves with the work, not against it. The breeze begins to move lightly through the village. It is still gentle, still cool. It passes through open spaces, brushing against skin, carrying faint scents of earth and water. People feel it, but do not stop for it. It becomes part of the background, part of the day. Inside one home, weaving continues. Fibers cross over one another in steady patterns. Hands move without hesitation. The shape grows slowly. A mat, perhaps, or a basket. Something that will be used, touched, lived with. Nothing is made without purpose. Nothing is made without care. Time passes in this quiet way. The sun rises a little higher. The light becomes stronger. Shadows begin to shorten. The day moves forward, step by step. In the fields, work continues at a steady pace. No one rushes ahead. No one falls behind. Each person moves in rhythm with the land, with the water, with the slow passage of time. A man pauses and looks up. The sky is clear, wide, unbroken. There is no need to think beyond what is here. The work, the land, the river. Everything needed is present. Everything is enough. Back in the village, food is shared again. Simple portions, eaten slowly, without distraction. The act of eating is calm, quiet, a moment to pause, even in the middle of the day. And as the sun continues its climb, and the warmth begins to grow stronger once more, the village settles deeper into the rhythm of another day. Not new, not different, but steady, reliable, unchanging in the ways that matter. The homes stand quietly. The paths remain familiar. The Nile flows beside them. And life continues, softly, patiently, one moment at a time. The morning deepens slowly. The sun has climbed higher now, and its warmth begins to settle more firmly across the land. The softness of early light is still there, but it is changing, becoming a little stronger, a little more present with each passing moment. The village continues in its quiet rhythm. Nothing feels rushed, nothing feels forced, only the steady unfolding of another day. In the fields near the Nile, the work carries on. Feet press gently into the dark, moist soil. The ground here feels different from the dry earth near the homes. It gives slightly under weight. It holds the memory of water. Each step leaves a faint mark, soon softened again by time and movement. A man moves along a narrow irrigation channel. He watches the water closely. It flows in a thin, steady line, guided by the edges shaped by careful hands. He bends slightly and uses a small tool to adjust the path, just a little, a small shift in the earth. The water responds immediately, changing direction without resistance. It follows where it is guided, always calm, always willing. Nearby, others work in silence or in soft conversation. Voices rise gently, then fade. There is no loud laughter, no sharp sounds, only the quiet presence of shared effort. The work itself fills the space. No more is needed. The plants stand in orderly rows, though not perfectly straight. Their leaves reach upward, catching the light. Some are small, just beginning. Others are stronger, further along, each one at its own stage, each one moving at its own pace. Hands move through them carefully, checking, adjusting, removing what does not belong, encouraging what does. The work is patient. There is no expectation of quick results. Growth is understood as something slow, something that cannot be hurried. Back in the village, the warmth of the day becomes more noticeable. The air begins to feel heavier, not uncomfortable yet, but changing. People adjust without thinking. They move more often in the shade. They pause more frequently. The rhythm shifts, but does not break. Inside the homes, the thick walls begin to show their purpose. The air remains cooler here, still, protected, a quiet contrast to the growing heat outside. A woman sits near the wall, working with a piece of cloth. Her fingers move slowly, repairing a small tear. The fabric is simple, worn from use, but still strong enough to continue. Each stitch is placed with care, not rushed, not forced. The thread moves in and out, binding the fibers together again, restoring what was worn. Nearby, a clay jar rests in the shade. Its surface is cool, slightly damp from earlier. Inside, the water remains fresh, protected from the heat, a small but important comfort. A child approaches the jar, pauses, then carefully lifts a small cup. The movement is slow, respectful. Water is not taken without thought. It is poured gently, drunk slowly, each sip steady. Outside, the light continues to grow stronger. Shadows shorten further. The open spaces feel brighter now, more exposed. People move through them quickly, without rushing, but without lingering. Shade becomes a place of quiet gathering. On one side of the village, a group of people sit beneath a simple covering made of reeds. It provides just enough protection from the sun. They sit close together, not speaking much, each one resting in their own way, some with eyes closed, others watching the slow movement of the day. A man leans back slightly, his hands resting on his knees. His breathing is calm, even. There is no urgency in his posture, only rest, only a brief pause before returning to work. The breeze returns again, but now it is warmer. It moves across the land without much cooling. Still, it carries a sense of movement, a reminder that the air itself is never still for long. In the distance, the Nile continues its quiet flow. Its surface reflects the brighter light of the sun. Though the day grows warmer, the river remains unchanged, a steady presence, a quiet constant. A small bird moves across the sky, its path slow and smooth. It makes no loud sound, only a soft motion against the wide blue. It passes over the village, then continues on, unnoticed by most, but still part of the day. Inside the homes, the work slows slightly, not stopping, just easing. The body adjusts to the warmth. movements become more deliberate, more measured. Energy is used carefully. A woman finishes her stitching and sets the cloth aside. She rests her hands in her lap for a moment, feels the quiet, listens to the distant sounds. Then, slowly, she rises again. There is always something more to do, but there is no need to hurry toward it. In the fields, the work continues under the rising sun. Sweat forms lightly on skin, evaporates slowly in the warm air. No one speaks of the heat. It is understood. It is part of the day, part of life here. A man straightens his back and looks toward the river. For a moment he stands still, not thinking, not planning, just being present. Then, quietly, he returns to his task. Time passes gently, almost unnoticed. The morning moves closer to noonday. The light becomes stronger, the warmth deeper. And still, the village continues, steady, calm, unbroken. The homes remain cool within. The fields remain active beyond. The Nile flows beside them all. And life, in all its quiet detail, moves forward once again, without noise, without rush, without end.
The morning slowly gives way to midday. It happens without a clear line, without a single moment that marks the change. The light simply becomes fuller, stronger, settling over the land with quiet certainty. The sun now stands high above. Its warmth reaches every open space, pressing gently but steadily against the earth, the homes, and the people who move among them. In the fields, the work continues, though at a softer pace. Movements become more careful now, more measured. Each action takes just a little more time, not from difficulty, but from awareness. The body understands the heat and responds naturally. A man pauses beside a row of plants. He rests his tool against the ground. For a moment, he stands still, letting the warmth settle around him. His breathing is slow, even. There is no urgency to continue immediately. The work will wait. It always does. Nearby, water continues to move through the narrow channels. Its flow remains steady, unchanged by the rising heat. It slips quietly along its path, soaking into the soil, disappearing beneath the surface where it will nourish unseen roots. The sound is soft, barely there, but constant. Others in the field begin to pause as well, not all at once, one by one, each person finding their own moment to step back, to rest briefly, to gather strength. There is no signal, no instruction, only a shared understanding. The air feels heavier now. The breeze still moves, but it carries warmth with it. It does not cool as it did in the early morning. Still, it shifts the air gently, preventing complete stillness. Back in the village, the quiet spaces inside the homes become more important. The thick mud brick walls hold back much of the heat. Inside, the air remains calmer, softer, a place to rest. A woman sits near the shaded wall. Her hands are still now. For a while, she does nothing. She simply sits, breathing slowly, listening to the distant sounds of the day. There is no need to fill every moment with work. Rest is part of the rhythm, just as important as movement. Nearby, a clay jar holds water in the shade. Its surface is cool to the touch. Small droplets form on the outside, then fade again. Inside, the water remains fresh, protected, a quiet comfort against the warmth. A child lies on a woven mat, not fully asleep,
but not fully awake, eyes half closed, watching the light that enters softly through a small opening. The brightness outside feels distant from here. Inside, everything remains calm, still. Outside, the village paths are quieter now, fewer footsteps, less movement. Most people have either returned from the fields for a short rest or have found shade where they can. The open ground feels wide and bright, untouched for a while. A small animal moves slowly along the edge of a wall. Its shadow stretches thin against the ground. It pauses, then continues. Its presence is quiet, unnoticed by most, but still part of the living world. The Nile flows steadily beyond the village. Its surface now reflects the bright, high sun. The light is stronger here, sharper than in the morning, but the water remains calm, unchanged. It does not react to the heat. It simply continues, always moving, always present. Near its edge, a few figures stand. Some gather water, others wash their hands or faces. The contact with the water brings a small sense of relief, a brief moment of coolness. They do not stay long, only enough, then they return. Time passes slowly in the midday hours. Each moment stretches gently into the next. Nothing pulls it forward, nothing rushes it along. The day seems to rest within itself. Inside the homes, quiet tasks may continue. Small things, mending, arranging, preparing for later. But everything is done with less movement, less energy. The body conserves what it can. A man lies back in the shade of a wall outside. His eyes are closed, not fully asleep, just resting, letting the heat pass, letting time move without him for a while. His breathing is steady, calm. Nearby, another sits with their back against a wall, looking out over the quiet path, watching nothing in particular, just observing, letting the stillness fill the space. The breeze passes again, soft but warm. It carries the faint scent of dry earth, of distant water, of life continuing quietly. It touches skin lightly, then moves on. The sound of the village is very low now, almost silent. Only small movements, a shift here, a step there, a distant voice, quiet and brief, then stillness again. The sun remains high, unmoving to the eye, its presence steady, constant. This is the heart of the day, the slow center, where everything pauses just enough. And then, very gradually, so gently it is almost impossible to notice, the light begins to change again, just slightly, the beginning of its descent, the promise of softer hours ahead. The heat will ease, the movement will return, the rhythm will shift once more. But for now, the village rests within the midday calm, held in warmth, held in stillness, held in the quiet passage of time.
The midday stillness begins to loosen its grip. It does not end quickly. It fades in the same way it arrived, slowly, almost invisibly, as the sun begins its long, patient descent. The light is still strong, still warm, but something subtle has changed. A softness returns to the edges of the day. In the fields near the Nile, the first movements begin again. Not sudden, not urgent, just the quiet return of activity, one person at a time. A man lifts himself from a resting place in the shade. He pauses for a moment, letting his body adjust. Then he reaches for his tool again. The motion feels familiar, comforting in its return. Nearby, others begin to move as well. Water is checked in the channels. Soil is gently adjusted where needed.
Plants are observed, touched lightly, understood through quiet attention. The work resumes like a breath being taken after a long pause. Slow, steady, natural. The river continues beside them, unchanged. It reflects the afternoon light now, less sharp than midday, more angled, more golden in tone. Its surface moves without hurry, a constant presence that does not respond to the heat or the time of day. It simply continues. Back in the village, life begins to stir more noticeably. Doors open again. Shadows stretch a little longer than before. People step out from their homes and shaded spaces, blinking gently into the returning activity of the afternoon. A woman carries a small bundle of woven material. She walks slowly along a familiar path. Her steps are unhurried, balanced. The weight she carries is light, but she holds it with care. Everything here is treated with attention, even the smallest things. Inside one home, a child wakes fully from a midday rest. The light feels different now compared to earlier, warmer but less heavy than before. The child sits quietly for a moment, listening to the sounds outside. Voices returning, movement returning, life gently resuming its shape. A clay vessel is lifted and moved to a different place inside a shaded room. Its surface catches a faint reflection of light before settling back into shadow. Objects are often moved like this throughout the day. Not dramatically, just small adjustments, small decisions that keep life in order. Outside, a soft breeze moves through the village again. This time, it carries a slightly cooler tone, a hint of relief after the deepest part of the heat. It passes through narrow paths, brushing against walls, slipping between open spaces. People notice it. Some pause for just a moment to feel it, then continue. In the fields, the rhythm of work becomes more steady again, less interrupted, more continuous. Tools move through soil with practiced ease. Water flows in its channels with careful direction. Each task connects to the next without urgency. Everything remains balanced. Nothing is excessive. Nothing is wasted. A man kneels near the earth, carefully pressing soil back into place along a channel edge. His fingers are coated lightly with dirt. He works slowly, ensuring the shape holds. When he finishes, he shifts his weight and continues onward. Farther back in the village, small groups begin to form again in shaded areas. People gather without planning. They simply come together where it is comfortable, sitting on mats or low stools, resting, talking softly, or sometimes not speaking at all. The presence of others is enough. A woman shares a small portion of food with another. The exchange is simple, quiet. Hands meet briefly, then separate. There is no ceremony in it, only everyday kindness. The sun continues its slow movement downward. Now it is no longer at its highest point. The light begins to angle more noticeably across the land. Longer shadows stretch between homes, across paths, over the edges of fields. The village begins to feel more spacious again, less compressed by the heat. In one home, weaving continues once more. The fibers now catch the softer afternoon light. Hands move steadily, maintaining the pattern that has been building since morning. The work is not rushed. It does not need to be completed today. It will continue tomorrow if necessary. Time is not something to conquer here. It is something to live within. A man stands at the edge of a path, looking toward the river. He does not speak. He simply watches the movement of water and light together. For a moment, everything feels still within him as well. Then he turns and walks back toward the village. The air grows slightly cooler as the afternoon deepens. Not a dramatic change, just a gentle easing. Enough for movement to feel lighter again. Enough for the day to continue without strain. Inside the homes, preparations for the evening begin quietly. Small adjustments, small tasks, checking what is needed for later. Nothing hurried, everything gradual. The Nile continues its steady course, unchanged, unbothered, a constant thread through every part of the day. And as the sun lowers further, casting longer and softer light across the land, the village settles once again into its familiar rhythm between work and rest, between movement and stillness, between the passing hours of another ordinary, quiet day.
The afternoon begins to lean gently toward evening. It is not a sudden shift, but a soft turning, like the slow closing of a calm day that is not ready to end, yet already beginning to rest. The sunlight grows warmer in color now, less sharp, more golden. It spreads across the village in long shapes, stretching over paths, rooftops, and the edges of fields. In the fields near the Nile, work continues at a steady pace, but the energy has changed again. It feels lighter now, less demanding than earlier in the day. People move with an easy rhythm, as if the land itself is guiding their pace. A man walks slowly along a narrow channel of water, watching its flow. He does not need to adjust much now, only observe, only ensure that everything remains as it should be. The water continues its gentle movement. It curves through the earth, disappearing into soil, reappearing in small reflective lines. It does not hurry. It does not hesitate. It simply follows its path, as it always has. Farther back toward the village, the sounds of daily life begin to grow a little more noticeable again. Not louder, just more present. Footsteps returning, soft voices reappearing between homes, the slow reawakening of evening routines. A woman carries a small container across a shaded path. Her movement is steady, balanced. The container is light, but she holds it with both care and habit. She passes another person, and they exchange a brief, quiet nod. No words are needed. These small acknowledgments are enough. Inside one of the homes, the light has shifted noticeably. It enters at a lower angle now, brushing across the floor in long, soft lines. A child sits nearby, watching the light move slowly across the wall. The simplicity of it holds attention. Just light, just shadow, just time passing gently across a surface. A woven mat is shaken out carefully and placed again on the ground. The motion sends a faint puff of dust into the air, which drifts and settles again without urgency. Everything here returns to stillness quickly. Even movement is gentle. Even change is quiet. Outside, the breeze returns once more, cooler than before. It moves through the village more clearly now, carrying the first real sense of relief from the day's warmth. People notice it more strongly this time. Some pause to face it directly. Some close their eyes for a moment, then continue on. In the fields, the final tasks of the day begin, not finishing everything at once, but slowly closing what has been opened, checking water paths, gathering tools, observing the condition of the land as the light shifts. A man lifts his tool and rests it over his shoulder. He looks across the field. No words, no urgency, only a quiet sense of completion forming within the day. Nearby, others begin to move back toward the village, one by one, not as a group, but naturally as their work reaches its pause. Their silhouettes stretch long across the ground as they walk. The sun behind them lowers a little more with each passing moment. The Nile reflects the changing sky again, now softer in tone, gold blending into pale orange. The surface remains calm, almost mirror-like in places. It carries the entire sky without effort, as it always does. Back in the village, evening preparations become more visible. Small fires are gathered and arranged, not yet fully lit, just prepared, waiting for the right moment. Food is organized, water is set aside, simple tasks that mark the slow approach of night. A man sits near the edge of a wall, resting his back against the cool surface. His hands are loose in his lap. His breathing is even. He watches nothing in particular, just the flow of movement around him. People passing, light changing, time continuing forward. A child sits nearby, drawing faint shapes in the dust with a stick. The lines are imperfect, temporary. They will not last, but they do not need to. The act itself is enough, a small expression of thought, a quiet moment of focus. The sun lowers further now. Its shape moves closer to the horizon. The light becomes richer, deeper. Everything it touches takes on a warmer tone. Walls glow softly, paths appear longer, shadows deepen gently. The day begins to feel like it is nearing its final breath, not ending abruptly, but easing into its close. People gather more frequently in small groups again, near homes, on rooftops, under simple shade coverings. They sit quietly, resting together after the day's work. Some speak softly, others simply listen. Silence remains a comfortable part of the evening. Inside the homes, cooking begins again in a slow, familiar way. The sound of small fires returning, the smell of warm food beginning to rise once more. Nothing rushed, nothing large, only enough for the evening, only what is needed. The breeze continues, now cooler, now more constant. It moves through every space it can reach, through open doorways, across rooftops, between narrow paths. It brings a sense of transition, a gentle reminder that night is coming. The Nile continues its endless flow, unchanged by the fading light, always steady, always present. And as the sun touches lower still, approaching the edge of the world beyond the horizon, the village begins to soften into evening once again, with the same quiet rhythm, the same gentle balance that has carried it through the entire day.
Evening arrives slowly, as if it prefers not to interrupt the day too quickly. The light softens further now, stretching thin across the land. Gold turns into deeper amber, and then into warm, fading tones that rest gently on the surface of everything they touch. The village feels quieter, even while it is still alive with movement. Everything slows, not because it must, but because it naturally does. In the fields, the final moments of work are completed. Tools are gathered with care. Water channels are left in a steady, balanced state. Soil is checked one last time, not with urgency, but with quiet attention. A man stands still for a moment, looking over the land he has tended throughout the day. There is no expression of triumph, no need for it, only a calm sense of completion. Then he turns and begins the walk back toward the village. Others follow in their own time, not together, not in formation, but in a loose, natural flow, as each person finishes what they were doing. Their figures move through the fields, growing darker against the warm sky behind them. Each step carries them away from work and toward rest. The Nile reflects the evening sky with greater softness now. The light on its surface is no longer bright. It is muted, gentle, almost quiet in its own way. The water continues to move, but the movement feels calmer in this light, like the river itself is settling into the evening. Back in the village, the atmosphere becomes more clearly domestic. Fires are now fully lit in small clusters. Their glow is warm and steady, not large flames, but controlled, careful ones. They provide light for cooking and gathering. They mark the transition from day's labor to evening rest. The smell of food grows stronger, simple meals being prepared again, grains warming, vegetables softening. The scent drifts through open spaces, blending with the cooler air of evening. It is familiar, comforting, a signal that the day is nearly complete. A woman sits near a fire, watching it closely. Her face is lit softly by its glow. She turns food carefully, listening to the small sounds it makes. Nearby, a child sits quietly, drawn to the warmth. Neither speaks much. The fire provides enough presence on its own. Outside, more people return from the fields. Their footsteps are slower now, easier. The weight of the day feels lighter as it is left behind with each step closer to home. They pass through the village paths, greeted by soft nods or quiet glances. No words are needed. Everyone understands the rhythm of this hour. The sky continues its gradual transformation. Blue deepens, orange fades into softer tones, and the first stars begin to appear again, one by one, not suddenly, but patiently, as if they were always there, just waiting to be seen. On a rooftop, a few people sit together in the cooling air. They do not move much. They simply rest, looking out over the village as it settles into evening. The view is calm, homes glowing faintly with firelight, paths dimming into shadow, the Nile reflecting the last light of day in the distance. A man leans back slightly, his hands resting behind him. He exhales slowly. There is nothing left to complete for the day, only the simple act of being present. The air feels cooler now against his skin, a gentle relief after the heat. Below, the village continues its slow evening rhythm. Some people finish their meals, others share small conversations. Some sit in silence, watching the sky deepen. Everything happens without pressure, without urgency. Inside the homes, mats are arranged once more. Spaces are prepared for sleep later in the night. The same simple routines return, not as repetition that weighs down the day, but as comfort, as familiarity, as ease. A child lies close to a wall, watching the flicker of firelight across the ceiling. The movement is slow and rhythmic. It calms the mind. The eyes grow heavier, but not yet closed. There is still a little time before sleep arrives. The breeze moves more clearly now through the village, cooler, softer. It passes through doorways, over rooftops, between narrow paths. It carries away the last warmth of the day. It brings the quiet promise of night. The Nile remains steady, its surface now darker, reflecting only fragments of the fading sky. Yet it continues without pause, a constant thread through everything, day and night alike. The fires begin to settle slightly, their flames lower, steadier. The glow they give becomes softer, less intense. The village moves closer to full night, closer to stillness. Voices gradually fade, not all at once, but one by one, as conversations end and people grow quiet. The sound of the village becomes thinner, lighter, more spaced between moments. And as the last colors of the sunset disappear completely beyond the horizon, the world transitions gently into night once more, not as an ending, but as a return to the same quiet stillness that always follows the day.
Night arrives again, but it never feels like something new here. It feels familiar, like something remembered, like something that has always been waiting just beyond the last light of evening. The sky is now deep and wide, filled with steady stars that glow without change, without effort, without sound. The village rests beneath them. The fires have grown smaller now. Their flames are low and gentle, almost like they are conserving their strength for only what is necessary. Their light no longer reaches far. It stays close, warm, intimate. Around each small fire, people sit quietly. Some finish the last parts of their meals. Others simply sit and breathe, letting the day settle fully behind them. The sounds of the village are few, a soft movement here, a quiet breath there, the faint rustle of fabric as someone shifts their position on a mat. Even the smallest noises feel softer at night, as if the darkness itself
gently absorbs them. Inside the homes, the air is calm and still. The thick mud brick walls hold the coolness of the evening now. They keep the warmth of the fires contained, just enough to make the space comfortable. Not hot, not cold, just balanced. A woman lies down slowly on her woven mat. Her movements are unhurried. She adjusts the cloth beneath her head, then rests her hands beside her. For a moment she remains awake, listening to the quiet around her. The day is finished. There is nothing left to do. Only rest remains. Nearby, a child lies close, already drifting between wakefulness and sleep. The firelight outside flickers faintly through small openings in the wall. It creates soft, shifting patterns on the ceiling. The child watches them without thinking, without trying to understand, just watching, just being still. Outside, the village paths are nearly empty now. A few figures move slowly between homes, finishing small tasks before sleep, carrying water, closing doors, adjusting mats, everything done in a calm, final rhythm. No hurry remains in their movements, only completion. The Nile continues its endless flow beside the sleeping land. It does not change for night, it does not slow. It simply moves forward, as it always has, carrying the quiet reflection of stars on its surface. Sometimes the water looks almost black. Sometimes it catches faint silver light, but it never stops. A breeze moves through the village again, this time cooler, more distinct. It travels through narrow paths and open spaces, brushing lightly against sleeping homes. It carries the scent of earth cooling after a long day, the scent of stillness returning. On a rooftop, someone remains awake for a little longer, lying back, looking up at the sky. The stars feel closer here, not because they have moved, but because everything else has grown quiet enough to notice them more clearly. There is no need to count them, no need to follow them, only to observe their steady presence. Time passes in a slow, almost invisible way. There are no markers in the night, no changes in light, only the steady rhythm of breath, the distant sound of water, the occasional soft movement of someone turning in sleep. Inside one home, a small shift breaks the stillness. A child stirs briefly, then settles again. A hand reaches slightly, then relaxes. Sleep returns without effort. The night remains calm, unbroken. The fires outside fade further. Their glow becomes dimmer, softer. Soon they will be nothing but faint warmth and glowing embers. Not gone completely, just resting, like everything else. The sky above remains unchanged. Stars hold their places. The darkness between them feels deep, but not heavy. It is not empty. It is full of quiet presence, full of space, full of rest. The night deepens further now, not in a way that feels heavy, but in a way that feels complete, as if the world has finally settled into its softest shape. The stars remain unchanged above the village, steady and patient, holding their quiet positions across the vast sky. Most of the village is now fully asleep. The homes are still. The paths are empty. The fires have almost entirely faded, leaving only faint warmth where flames once were. A few glowing embers remain, dim and quiet, slowly cooling into darkness. Inside the homes, sleep has taken hold in layers. Some people sleep deeply, their breathing slow and even. Others rest more lightly, shifting occasionally before settling again. But all of it remains calm. All of it remains peaceful. A soft silence fills the spaces between the houses. It is not absolute silence. It is the kind of silence shaped by the distant presence of water, wind, and earth. A silence that feels alive in its own quiet way. The Nile continues its movement beside the sleeping land. It does not pause for night. It does not change its rhythm. It flows as it always has, carrying faint reflections of starlight across its surface. The water feels endless in this darkness, a slow, steady presence that belongs equally to day and night. A gentle breeze moves again through the village, fainter now, almost like a whisper passing through the spaces between homes. It touches the walls softly. It moves over the rooftops without sound. It passes and leaves no trace behind. In one home, a person shifts slightly in sleep, a small movement, a quiet adjustment. Then stillness returns immediately. The body relaxes again into rest, as if it never moved at all. The night air grows cooler now, not cold, just comfortably cool. It settles over the village like a soft covering, bringing balance to the warmth that remains inside the homes. Everything feels held. Everything feels stable. On the rooftop where someone had remained awake earlier, there is now only stillness. The figure has settled into sleep as well. The rooftop becomes part of the quiet landscape again, just another resting place beneath the sky. Above, the stars continue their slow and silent watch. They do not change. They do not move in ways the eye can notice. They simply remain, constant, patient, endless. Time becomes harder to feel now, not because it has stopped, but because nothing interrupts it. There are no voices, no footsteps, no movement large enough to mark its passing, only the steady rhythm of night. Inside the village, everything exists in a gentle balance, walls holding warmth, floors holding stillness, air holding quiet. Each home becomes its own small world of rest. A child sleeps deeply now, face turned slightly toward the wall, breathing slow, even, completely at ease. The flicker of earlier firelight is gone, replaced by darkness that feels soft rather than empty. Outside, the last traces of ember light finally fade. No glow remains now, only darkness shaped by the night sky above. And even this darkness feels familiar, safe, natural. The Nile continues without interruption. Its movement is the only constant motion in the world around the sleeping village. It carries the reflections of stars, broken and reformed on its surface with each small ripple. It does not rush. It does not rest. It simply continues. The breeze grows even softer now, barely noticeable now. It moves through the reeds near the river, then fades again into stillness. The land and sky feel closely connected in this quiet hour. Everything in the village now rests fully, not in stages, not in moments, but as a complete and unified stillness, a shared silence between homes, people, earth, and water. And as the night continues its slow, endless passage, the world remains gently asleep, held in quiet darkness under the steady presence of stars that never fade.
The night reaches its deepest point now. A kind of quiet that feels almost complete, as if even time itself has softened its edges and slowed its pace. The village remains asleep beneath the wide sky. No fires remain visible now, only darkness and the faint outline of homes resting together in stillness. Inside the homes, sleep continues without interruption. Breathing rises and falls in slow, steady rhythms. Bodies rest fully, letting go of the long hours of the day. There is no strain left in any movement, no tension left in any thought. Only rest, only calm. The mud brick walls hold the coolness of the night with quiet patience. They keep the inside spaces balanced, protecting warmth where it remains, allowing cool air where it is needed. Everything feels naturally adjusted. Nothing is forced. Nothing is changed. Outside, the Nile continues its long journey. It reflects almost nothing now except the faintest presence of starlight. Its surface moves in small, quiet ripples that seem to belong more to the night than to the land. It is steady, unbroken, endless. A faint breeze returns once more. It is so light that it barely disturbs the stillness. It passes over the river first, then through the reeds along its edges, then across the sleeping fields. It carries no sound, no direction, only movement that quickly fades again into calm. Inside, a sleeper turns slightly. The motion is small, almost invisible. Then stillness returns at once. The body settles deeper into rest, as if guided there by the night itself. The sky above remains unchanged. Stars continue their quiet presence. Some appear brighter than others, but all remain steady. There is no sense of distance in this moment, only vastness, only calm space stretching endlessly in every direction. The village feels no separation now between one home and another. Everything is part of the same quiet field of sleep. Walls, paths, rooftops, and empty spaces all share the same stillness. It is as if the entire place is breathing in one slow rhythm. The Nile moves gently through this silence, unaffected by the deepening night. It has seen the day pass. It has seen the evening fade. Now it simply continues through the darkness, carrying reflections that no longer need to be seen to exist. A small sound appears briefly in the distance, perhaps a shifting branch, perhaps a settling of earth. It is too soft to name clearly, and just as quickly as it appears, it fades again into silence. The night remains unbroken. Inside, sleep deepens further.
Dreams begin quietly for some, not vivid or loud, but soft and formless, like drifting through calm water, like floating without weight. The air grows even cooler now, not cold enough to disturb, only enough to deepen comfort, to encourage stillness, to hold the sleeping village gently in place. Nothing in the village moves now with intention. Only the natural motions of rest remain. Subtle shifts, slow breaths, quiet stillness returning after each small change. The world feels paused, but not stopped, alive, but resting, present, but undisturbed. And as the deepest part of the night continues to unfold, the village remains completely at peace, held beneath the endless sky and the steady flow of the Nile that never ceases.
The night begins its slow, almost invisible turning toward early morning. There is no clear boundary between deep night and the first quiet hint of dawn. Only a gradual softening in the darkness, so subtle it is almost imagined. The stars are still present, but they feel slightly less sharp than before, as if the sky itself is gently exhaling. The village remains asleep. Nothing has changed in its stillness. Homes stand quietly together, their forms blending into the darkness, familiar even without light. Inside them, sleep continues in calm layers, steady and unbroken. A sleeper shifts slightly in one home. The movement is brief, natural. Then stillness returns, deeper than before. The body settles as if the night itself is guiding it into rest. The Nile continues to flow beside the sleeping land. Its movement is unchanged, but the sky above it begins to feel different. There is a faint sense of transition in the air, not seen, but felt. The river carries both night and the promise of morning in the same slow current. The breeze returns again, softer than earlier. It moves through the village with almost no resistance, as if it belongs there completely. It passes over rooftops, through empty paths, and across sleeping fields. Then it fades once more. Inside the homes, the darkness is slightly less absolute now. Not brighter, but more open. The kind of darkness that is beginning to loosen its hold, even if nothing is yet visible. Sleep continues undisturbed within it. A child breathes softly in sleep. The rhythm is even, peaceful. There is no awareness of time passing, only the gentle comfort of rest. Far beyond the village, the sky begins to hold a faint suggestion of change. Not color, not light, only a subtle lifting in the weight of darkness, a quiet preparation for what is coming. The land remains still. Fields lie quiet after their long day. Water channels rest in their paths, holding the memory of movement from earlier hours. Everything is at ease. Everything is paused in calm continuation. The Nile reflects less of the sky now, but it still moves with purpose. Its flow is constant, unaffected by the slow turning of night toward morning. It has no beginning in this moment, no end, only presence. A faint sound appears again near the edge of the village, perhaps wind through dry grass, perhaps something shifting in the distance. It does not linger long enough to be defined. The silence quickly closes around it again. Inside one home, a hand rests loosely against a woven mat. The fingers are still, relaxed. The body remains deeply at rest, held in comfort by the cool air of night.
The stars begin to feel slightly fewer in presence, though still bright. Some seem to soften at the edges, others remain steady and strong. The sky is unchanged in shape, but changing in feeling. The village remains fully asleep, no movement beyond rest, no sound beyond breath, a complete stillness that stretches across every home equally. The air carries the faintest shift now, not warmth, not light, but a suggestion that the long night is slowly nearing its final hours. Everything remains quiet. Nothing interrupts this transition. The Nile continues, always continuing, a steady presence through all changes above and around it. It reflects the last deep tones of night and the earliest hints of something beyond it. And as the world remains in this gentle space between darkness and the coming dawn, the village sleeps on, held in calm silence under a sky that is slowly, quietly preparing to wake. The night now feels thinner, though nothing has yet truly changed. It is the quietest kind of transition, the kind that cannot be seen directly, only sensed in the way the air begins to feel slightly less heavy than before. The village still sleeps deeply, but the world around it begins to shift in very small, patient ways. The sky holds its darkness, but it no longer feels absolute. There is a softness to it now, as if the edges of night are beginning to loosen. The stars remain, but they feel gently distant, like they are watching from a slightly different place than before. Inside the homes, sleep continues without disturbance. The rhythm of breathing remains steady. The comfort of rest is unchanged. People lie still on their mats, wrapped in the quiet warmth of their own spaces. Nothing calls them yet. Nothing needs them yet. A faint coolness moves through the village. The breeze is almost gone now, but its memory lingers in the air. It passes lightly through narrow paths, barely touching the sleeping walls, then disappears again into stillness. The Nile continues its steady movement beside the land. It carries no sense of time, yet it seems to know the rhythm of change without reacting to it. Its surface is darker now, but not empty. It holds the faintest trace of starlight, scattered and soft. In one home, a sleeper exhales slowly, a deeper breath than before. The body remains at rest, but there is a subtle shift, as if sleep itself is becoming lighter at its edges. Then stillness returns, complete and calm. Far beyond the village, the sky begins to change in a way that is still too gentle to name. Not light yet, not color yet, only a soft suggestion that darkness is no longer absolute. The night is beginning to loosen its hold. The fields remain motionless. No work, no movement, only the quiet presence of land that has been tended and now rests in peace. The memory of the day still lives in the soil, even as everything grows still again. The village feels unified in its silence, not separate homes, not separate lives, but one resting presence spread across space. Each wall, each roof, each path sharing the same quiet breath of night. The Nile flows on without pause. It reflects nothing clearly now, only blurred impressions of sky and distance. Yet its movement is certain, reliable, endless in its calm direction. A very faint sound appears somewhere near the edge of the village, too soft to identify, too brief to follow. It exists for a moment, then dissolves into silence again, leaving no trace behind. Inside one home, a sleeper turns slightly.
A small adjustment, the kind made without waking. Then stillness returns, deeper than before, as if the body has settled even more fully into rest. The sky continues its slow transformation. Stars remain visible, but their contrast against the darkness begins to soften. The night is still present, but it is no longer at its deepest point. Something is gently shifting forward. The air feels cooler now in a more settled way, not changing sharply, but stabilizing into a calm that feels balanced between night and what is coming next. The village remains asleep within it. There is no urgency anywhere, no break in stillness, only the slow passage of time that does not announce itself, only the quiet continuity of existence. The Nile continues, always continuing. It does not reflect change as something separate. It simply moves through it, as it moves through everything. And as the final hours of night gently unfold without sound or interruption, the village remains deeply at rest, held in a quiet space between darkness and the first breath of dawn.
The night now feels like it is holding its final quiet breath, not ending yet, but no longer as deep as before. There is a gentle easing in the darkness, so soft it can only be noticed by patience itself. The village remains asleep in complete calm. The sky above is still dark, but it carries a subtle openness now. The stars are still visible, though they feel slightly less distant. They seem to belong both to the night and to something just beyond it. Inside the homes, sleep continues in steady stillness. Breathing remains slow and even. Bodies rest fully, with no tension, no movement beyond what is natural in deep rest. Everything remains at ease. A sleeper shifts slightly beneath a woven cloth. The motion is small, almost nothing. Then stillness returns immediately, as if the night itself has guided it back into calm. The Nile continues its endless movement beside the village. Its surface is darker than earlier, but it is not empty. It holds faint traces of the sky, scattered and soft, like memories reflected in water. It flows without change and rhythm, without interruption. A very faint breeze passes through the fields. It is lighter than before, almost uncertain in its presence. It moves across the land gently, then fades again, leaving only still air behind. The fields remain quiet. Soil that was worked during the day now rests in complete stillness. Water channels hold their paths without disturbance. Everything is in a state of pause that feels natural and complete. Inside one home, a child breathes softly in sleep. The rhythm is unbroken, peaceful, the kind of rest that holds the body gently, without effort. The sky continues its slow transformation. Darkness is still present, but it no longer feels absolute. There is a faint openness spreading through it, almost like space itself is becoming lighter. The stars remain steady, but the sense of depth around them begins to soften. The Nile continues, always the same rhythm, always the same quiet motion, a constant thread through every hour of night and every hint of what comes after. And as the final stretch of darkness continues to ease forward without sound or disturbance, the village remains deeply asleep, resting in a calm space where night is slowly beginning to turn toward morning. Now, the night is no longer at its deepest point. It still exists fully, but it feels lighter, as if something unseen is slowly preparing the world for change. The village remains asleep in complete stillness. Nothing interrupts this quiet balance. Nothing disturbs it. The sky holds its darkness gently now. It is still night, but it feels less dense than before. The stars remain steady, yet there is a faint softness around them, as though the sky is quietly opening its eyes. Inside the homes, sleep continues in calm layers. Breathing is slow and steady. Bodies remain at rest without movement or tension. Each person is held in the comfort of their own quiet space. A sleeper turns slightly beneath a cloth covering. The motion is brief and natural. Then stillness returns immediately, as if the body has settled even deeper into rest. The Nile continues its steady movement beside the village. It does not change its rhythm for night or morning. It flows the same way it always has, carrying darkness and the beginning of light within the same silent current. A faint breeze moves again across the fields. It is softer than before, almost like a memory of wind rather than wind itself. It passes through dry grass, over resting soil, and fades quickly into stillness again. The fields remain quiet and undisturbed. Everything worked during the day now rests without motion. The earth feels settled, as if it too is sleeping. Inside one home, a child breathes gently in sleep. The rhythm is calm and even. There is no disturbance, only deep rest, the kind that holds the body without effort. The sky continues to shift in a way too subtle to fully notice. Darkness is still present, but it is no longer absolute. There is a faint openness beginning to spread, like the world is slowly loosening its grip on night. The village remains entirely asleep. No fires burn brightly now. No movement passes through the paths. Only the quiet presence of many lives resting together in stillness. The Nile flows onward without change. Its surface reflects the night in softened fragments. It carries everything forward without pause. A distant sound appears briefly near the edge of the village. It is too faint to define. It does not last. Silence quickly closes around it again. Inside one home, a hand rests gently against the mat. The fingers remain still. The body is completely relaxed, fully immersed in sleep. No awareness of time exists here, only rest. The air feels slightly more open now, not lighter in any dramatic sense, but less closed than before, as if the night is slowly allowing the world to breathe more freely. The stars remain in place, but their presence feels softer now, still bright, still steady, but gently less sharp against the sky. The Nile continues its endless flow, a constant presence through all changes above and around it. It does not hurry toward morning, it simply continues through it. And as the final quiet stretch of night continues to unfold without sound or interruption, the village remains deeply asleep, held in a peaceful silence between the fading depth of night and the very first breath of dawn. The last part of the night is very quiet, not because something is happening, but because almost nothing is. Even time feels softened here, moving without pressure, without direction, as if it has learned how to be gentle. The village continues to sleep, deeply, completely. The sky above holds its remaining darkness with less weight now. It is still night, but it feels closer to transition than before. The stars remain visible, though they seem slightly quieter in presence, as if they are slowly preparing to fade without actually disappearing. Inside the homes, sleep remains steady. Breathing continues in slow, natural rhythms. No one is disturbed. No one wakes.
everything is held in the same calm stillness that has lasted through the night. A sleeper shifts slightly, a small, unconscious movement. Then stillness returns at once, as if it never happened. The body remains fully at rest, settled into deep sleep without resistance. Everything is calm. Everything is quiet. The Nile continues its quiet movement beside the land. It does not change for any hour of the night. It flows the same as always, carrying reflections that are now faint and soft, almost blending into darkness itself. A very light breeze passes over the fields again. It is almost unnoticeable. It moves gently through grass and empty paths, then disappears without sound. The air remains calm afterward. The fields are silent. No movement remains from the day. The soil rests in complete stillness, holding the memory of work without showing it. Everything is at peace. Everything is still. Inside one home, a child breathes softly in sleep. The rhythm is even, unbroken. There is no awareness of anything beyond rest, only quiet comfort. The sky continues its slow and subtle transformation. Darkness is still present, but it feels thinner now. Not lighter in color yet, but softer in presence, as if it is slowly releasing its hold on the world below. The village remains fully asleep. No sound rises from it. No light grows within it. Only the shared silence of many lives resting together in the same deep calm. The Nile flows without pause. Its surface is smooth in places, broken in others by faint ripples that carry no urgency. It reflects the sky in fragments that are no longer clear, but still present. A distant sound appears briefly again, too soft to define, too brief to follow. It dissolves almost immediately into silence once more. Inside one home, a hand lies still beside a woven mat. The fingers are relaxed. The body is fully at rest, settled into deep sleep without resistance. Everything is calm. Everything is quiet. The air feels slightly different now. Not warmer, not colder, but more open, as if the world is gently expanding into the space between night and morning. The stars remain visible, but their edges are less distinct than before. They are still bright, still present, but the sky around them feels softer, less dense. The Nile continues its steady, timeless movement. It carries night forward without end, and also carries the faint beginning of morning within it, even if it cannot yet be seen. And as this final stretch of darkness continues its slow and silent passage, the village remains deeply asleep, held gently between the last quiet hours of night and the first unseen breath of dawn. The night is now at its quietest edge. It is still present, still covering the world, but it no longer feels deep or heavy. It feels like a thin, gentle veil resting over everything, waiting without urgency for the next change. The village continues to sleep without disturbance. The sky remains dark, yet it carries a softness that was not there before. The stars are still visible, but they feel slightly dimmer in comparison to earlier hours, as if the sky is slowly conserving their light. Nothing disappears. Everything simply becomes more gentle. Inside the homes, sleep remains steady and calm. Breathing continues in slow, natural rhythm.
There are no sudden movements, no waking moments, only the quiet presence of rest across every space. A sleeper shifts faintly, then becomes still again. The motion is so small it almost does not exist. Sleep remains unbroken. The body returns immediately to calm stillness. The Nile continues its movement beside the sleeping land. It flows with the same quiet certainty it always has. The surface reflects almost nothing now, only faint impressions of darkness and distance. Still moving, still present, still unchanged. A faint breeze passes through the fields once more. It is weaker than before. It moves like a passing thought across the land, touching nothing strongly enough to leave a mark. Then it is gone. The fields remain silent and undisturbed. Soil rests where it was worked. Water channels hold their shape without movement. Everything is in a state of quiet completion from the day before. Inside one home, a child sleeps deeply. The breath is even and soft. There is no awareness of anything beyond rest, only the comfort of sleep. The sky continues its slow transformation. The darkness is still there, but it no longer feels absolute. There is a subtle openness beginning to form, like space itself is preparing for something that has not yet arrived. The village remains entirely asleep. No lights rise, no sounds break through, only the shared stillness of many lives resting together in silence. The Nile flows onward without interruption. It carries no urgency. It carries no hesitation. It simply continues as it always has, through night and toward morning, without changing its rhythm. And as the final quiet moments of night stretch forward without sound or interruption, the village remains deeply asleep, resting in a calm space where darkness is slowly beginning to loosen and the first breath of dawn quietly approaches.
Now, the night is almost at its softest point. It still covers the village completely, but it no longer feels like a deep darkness. It feels light in its own quiet way, like something resting gently over the world, not holding it tightly anymore, but simply covering it for a little while longer. The village remains asleep, unmoving, calm. The sky is still dark, but it is no longer unchanged. There is a subtle openness beginning to spread through it, so faint it can only be felt, not seen. The stars are still there, but their presence feels quieter now, less sharp against the sky. They remain steady, but they no longer feel distant in the same way. Inside the homes, sleep continues without interruption. Breathing is slow and even. The rhythm of rest is steady across every space. No one wakes, no one stirs beyond small natural movements that quickly fade back into stillness. A sleeper shifts slightly beneath a cloth. The movement is brief. Then stillness returns immediately. Sleep remains complete. The Nile continues its endless flow beside the village. It moves with the same quiet certainty it always has. The water reflects only faint traces of the sky now, broken and soft, blending into the darkness. It does not change for night or morning. It simply continues. A very faint breeze moves across the fields again. It is weaker than before. It passes gently through grass and empty paths, then disappears without sound. The air remains still afterward. The fields are silent.
No movement remains. The soil rests in complete calm, holding the memory of the day without showing it. Everything is quiet. Everything is settled. Inside one home, a child breathes softly in sleep. The rhythm is peaceful, unbroken. There is no awareness of anything beyond rest, only the comfort of sleep. The sky continues its slow, almost invisible transformation. The darkness is still present, but it feels thinner now, not lighter in color yet, but softer in weight, as if the sky is gently loosening its hold on the world below. The village remains fully asleep. No sound rises, no light returns, only the shared stillness of many lives resting together in quiet unity. The Nile flows onward without pause. It carries both night and the beginning of something new within its steady movement. But nothing about it rushes, nothing about it changes. It simply continues. A distant sound appears briefly again, too faint to define. It fades almost immediately, absorbed into silence. The night remains unbroken. Inside one home, a hand lies still on a woven mat. The fingers are relaxed. The body rests deeply, fully surrendered to sleep. No awareness of time exists here, only calm. The air feels slightly more open now, not brighter, not warmer, but less closed than before, as if the world is slowly preparing itself for return. The stars remain visible, but their edges are softer. They are still bright, still present, but gently fading in contrast against the changing sky. The Nile continues its endless journey, a constant presence through the final hours of night, unchanging, unhurried, always moving forward. And as this final stretch of darkness continues without sound or disturbance, the village remains deeply asleep, resting in the quiet space where night is almost ready to release the world and morning is quietly waiting just beyond it.
The night is now in its final quiet phase. It does not feel deep anymore, and yet it is still present everywhere, covering the village in a soft, familiar darkness that has stayed for many hours. But something subtle has changed. It feels as if the night is no longer holding on, only resting, only waiting. The sky remains dark, but it is not the same darkness as before. It feels thinner now, almost gently stretched across the world. The stars are still visible, but their presence feels calmer, less intense, as if they are quietly stepping back into the distance. Nothing disappears. Everything simply softens. Inside the homes, sleep continues without interruption. Breathing remains steady and slow. The rhythm of rest is consistent across every space in the village. No one wakes. No one moves beyond the natural stillness of deep sleep. A sleeper turns slightly, then becomes still again. The motion is small, almost like a ripple that fades immediately into calm water. Sleep remains unbroken. The Nile continues its endless flow beside the village. It does not change for the night, and it does not change for the approaching morning. It moves with the same quiet certainty it always has. The surface is dark now, reflecting only faint traces of sky and distance.
A very light breeze moves once more across the fields. It is almost nothing now, just a passing softness through grass and empty paths. It fades quickly, leaving the air completely still again. The fields remain quiet and unchanged. Soil rests where it was shaped during the day. Water channels hold their form in silence. Everything feels complete, as if the land itself is resting after long work. Inside one home, a child sleeps deeply. Breathing is calm and even. There is no awareness of anything beyond rest, only the quiet comfort of sleep. The sky continues its slow transformation. The darkness is still there, but it feels looser now, as if it is no longer holding tightly to the world. There is a faint openness beginning to spread, not yet visible as light, but present as feeling. The village remains fully asleep. No movement breaks the stillness. No sound rises from the homes. Only the shared quiet of many lives resting together in peace. The Nile flows onward without pause. It carries no urgency. It carries no hesitation. It simply continues through night, through silence, through the unseen edge of morning. A distant sound appears again for a moment. It is too faint to recognize. It fades almost immediately, leaving silence intact once more. Inside one home, a hand rests loosely on a mat. The fingers are still. The body is completely relaxed, fully surrendered to deep sleep. No awareness of time exists here, only rest. The air feels slightly more open now, not brighter, not warmer, but gently less enclosed than before, as if the world is preparing to breathe again. The stars remain visible, but their edges are softer now. They are still present, still steady, but their contrast against the sky is slowly fading. The Nile continues its endless journey, a constant thread through the final hours of night, unchanged, unhurried, always moving forward. And as the last quiet stretch of darkness continues without sound or interruption, the village remains deeply asleep, resting in a calm space where night is almost finished and the first breath of dawn is quietly, patiently near.
Now the night begins to loosen completely. Not all at once, not in a way that can be clearly seen, but in a way that is slowly felt in everything at the same time. The village still sleeps, yet the world around it is already changing. The sky is no longer deep darkness. It is still dark, but it has softened into something quieter, something lighter in feeling, as if the weight of night is gently lifting away. The stars remain, but they no longer feel like they are standing in endless distance. They feel closer to fading, as if they are preparing to step back into unseen places. Inside the homes, sleep continues. Breathing is steady, peaceful, unbroken. Every person remains held in deep rest, unaware of the slow shift beginning above them. No one stirs. No one wakes. A final small movement passes through one sleeper, a slight turn, then stillness again. Sleep holds everything in place gently, without effort. The Nile continues beside the village. It does not wait for morning. It does not leave night behind. It simply flows through both, carrying the same calm rhythm it has always carried. Its surface is darker now, but no less alive.
A breeze moves once more, but this time it feels different. It is no longer only passing through the night. It feels like it belongs to something coming, something just beyond what can be seen. It moves softly across the fields, then fades into stillness again. The land remains quiet. Fields rest. Paths are empty. Water channels hold their shape without movement. Everything feels complete in its silence. Inside the homes, there is only rest. A child sleeps without turning. An adult breathes slowly, deeply, evenly. The village as a whole remains one shared quiet presence beneath the fading night. And then, almost without announcement, the first change becomes clearer. Not light yet, but a soft lifting in the darkness, a sense that the sky is no longer fully closed, that something is beginning to open beyond it. The stars are still there, but they feel gentler now, less like points of light, more like memories of light. The Nile continues its endless flow, carrying this final hour of night without resistance. It has seen the day before. It has seen the night unfold. Now it carries the world quietly toward what comes next. The village does not wake, not yet. It remains in deep rest, held gently between what has passed and what is about to begin. And as the final breath of night slowly fades into the earliest, unseen promise of dawn, everything remains still. Everything remains calm, and the world rests quietly beneath a sky that is just beginning to open.